What if you could predict someone's next move before they even realize it themselves? Imagine sitting across from someone and already knowing whether they'll lie, hesitate, dominate, submit, or betray. That's not magic. That's pattern recognition powered by dark psychology. Human beings are not random. They are emotional creatures driven by fear, desire, insecurity, ego, and survival. Once you understand the emotional triggers beneath the surface, behavior stops being unpredictable. It becomes inevitable. Have you ever noticed how people repeat the same mistakes in relationships, business, and friendships? That's because behavior is a loop. People don't act based on logic, they act based on emotional programming. A person who fears abandonment will test loyalty. A person who craves validation will over-explain. A person hiding guilt will overreact. When you identify the emotional wound, you can forecast the reaction. Dark psychology teaches you to observe micro patterns, tone shifts, eye tension, forced smiles, delayed responses. These are not accidents, they are leaks. Why do some people always end up betraying trust, even when they promise they won't? Because behavior is dictated by dominant emotion, not intention. Intentions are conscious, emotions are primal, and primal always wins. If someone is driven by envy, they will eventually sabotage. If someone is driven by insecurity, they will eventually control. If someone is driven by ego, they will eventually compete, even with allies. When you learn to identify someone's dominant emotional driver, prediction becomes simple. You don't ask what they said. You ask what they fear. What if I told you that every reaction is a confession? Anger reveals insecurity. Silence reveals calculation. Overconfidence reveals doubt. When someone reacts strongly to a small trigger, you've touched their hidden nerve. That nerve is the key. Dark psychology isn't about manipulation for chaos, it's about understanding emotional leverage. When you see what destabilizes someone, you see what controls them. And when you see what controls them, you can predict them. Have you ever felt that instinct that someone is off, but couldn't explain why? That's your subconscious detecting inconsistencies. Humans leak truth through micro-expressions, pacing, and emotional timing. A liar thinks before answering. A confident person answers before thinking. A guilty person adds unnecessary detail. A dominant personality interrupts. These patterns are emotional signatures. Once you train yourself to notice them, you stop being surprised by outcomes. What scares people the most? Losing power, losing love, or losing status? The answer to that question predicts everything. A man afraid of losing power will intimidate. A woman afraid of losing love will cling. A leader afraid of losing status will overcompensate. Fear dictates strategy. Strategy dictates behavior. And behavior is predictable when fear is exposed. So how do you actually predict someone instantly? You watch what they defend. You watch what they avoid. You watch what triggers them. Defense reveals insecurity. Avoidance reveals guilt. Triggers reveal trauma. When you connect these three, you don't just observe behavior, you anticipate it. And here's the brutal truth: people believe they are complex, but their emotions are repetitive. Ego, fear, desire, jealousy, validation, the same 5 forces drive nearly every decision. Master these forces, and you don't just rid people. You stay 3 steps ahead of them. Now ask yourself, are you observing people, or are you still being surprised by them? What if people were never as mysterious as they pretend to be? What if every smile, every pause, every "I'm fine" was a sentence in a book you simply haven't learned to read yet? The truth is, humans are transparent, but only to those who understand emotional language. Dark psychology isn't about mind control. It's about decoding the silent signals people leak when they think no one is watching. And once you see the patterns, you can't unsee them. Have you ever felt someone's energy shift before their words did? That's because emotions move faster than speech. The body reacts before the mouth edits, a tightened jaw before agreement, a micro frown before praise, a subtle lean back before rejection. People edit their words, they can't edit their instincts. When you learn to read posture, breathing rhythm, eye focus and timing, you stop listening to what they say and start seeing what they feel. Why do some people over-explain simple things? Because guilt and insecurity demand reassurance. When someone adds too many details, they're not clarifying, they're defending. When someone repeats themselves, they're not emphasizing, they're convincing themselves. Emotion drives excess. Confidence is concise. Fear is verbose. If you want to read someone like a book, measure how much emotional effort they're investing in being believed. Have you noticed how dominant personalities take up space without asking? They interrupt. They maintain eye contact longer. They speak slower. That's not coincidence, that's territorial psychology. Meanwhile, insecure personalities shrink. They nod too much. They laugh too quickly. They seek approval before finishing sentences. When you compare how someone occupies physical and conversational space, you instantly understand their inner hierarchy of power. What happens when someone feels threatened but tries to hide it? Their body betrays them. Watch for defensive gestures, crossed arms, chin lifts, subtle scoffs, sarcasm. Threatened egos protect themselves through microaggression. Calm confidence doesn't need protection. The louder the reaction, the deeper the insecurity. When you trigger someone slightly, and their reaction explodes, you've just turned a page in their psychological story. Have you ever wondered why some people mirror you instantly? Mirroring isn't just social bonding, it's strategy. Subconsciously, people mimic those they want approval from or those they fear losing. If someone mirrors your tone, posture, or vocabulary quickly, they're emotionally invested. But if someone refuses to mirror at all, they're asserting dominance or emotional distance. Alignment reveals connection. Resistance reveals control. Why do liars look away or sometimes stare too intensely? Because deception creates cognitive stress. Some avoid eye contact to escape exposure. Others overcompensate to appear credible. The key isn't just eye movement, it's deviation from baseline. When behavior shifts under pressure, truth is being negotiated internally. Reading someone like a book means knowing their normal pattern first, then spotting the disruption. What if silence told you more than words ever could? Silence after a question, silence before agreement, silence during confrontation. Strategic pauses reveal calculation. Emotional pauses reveal discomfort. Indifferent silence reveals detachment. The rhythm of conversation is emotional Morse code, and most people never learn to decode it. And here's the secret most won't admit: people crave to be understood, yet fear being exposed. That tension leaks everywhere. Every conversation is a battlefield between image and emotion. If you observe without reacting, if you listen without interrupting, if you trigger without revealing your intention, you don't just read people, you dissect them. So ask yourself, are you still reading words, or are you finally reading humans? What if every conversation you've ever had was actually a silent power struggle? Not loud, not obvious, but subtle, strategic, emotional. Mind games don't begin with manipulation, they begin with positioning. The moment two people interact, dominance, validation, control, and influence enter the room. The question is, do you see it happening, or are you unknowingly playing from the weaker position? Have you ever felt someone trying to subtly control the frame of a conversation? Maybe they interrupt just enough to lead. Maybe they dismiss your idea before you finish. Maybe they act slightly unimpressed to lower your confidence. That's not personality, that's strategy. In mind games, the one who controls the emotional tone controls the outcome. If they can make you defensive, you lose leverage. If they can make you seek approval, you surrender power. Why do confident manipulators stay calm while others get emotional? Because emotional stability is psychological dominance. The person who reacts first reveals vulnerability. The person who stays composed forces the other to chase balance. When someone provokes you and you respond emotionally, they gain information. When you respond neutrally, you create uncertainty, and uncertainty destabilizes people faster than aggression ever could. Have you noticed how some people use silence as a weapon? Silence isn't weakness, it's pressure. When someone makes a bold statement and then goes silent, they're forcing you to fill the gap. Humans fear awkwardness, so you speak, you justify, you over-explain, and without realizing it, you give away emotional data. Mastering mind games means resisting the urge to rescue tension. Let others expose themselves in discomfort. What happens when someone subtly withdraws attention? Your brain reacts instantly. Attention is validation. When it disappears, insecurity activates. That's why strategic distance is powerful. Pull back slightly, and emotionally attached people lean forward, become less available, and those seeking approval chase harder. The one who appears less dependent often controls the dynamic. Why do manipulators mirror you before they challenge you? Because connection builds trust, and trust lowers defenses. First, they align with your beliefs. They nod, they agree, they reflect your tone. Then, once comfort is established, they introduce influence. This is psychological pacing and leading. If someone bonds too quickly, question the speed. Real connection develops naturally. Strategic bonding feels accelerated. Have you ever been complimented in a way that felt slightly uncomfortable? That's called a backhanded frame shift. You're surprisingly smart. You're confident for someone like you. These aren't compliments. They're subtle power plays designed to position you lower. Mind games often hide inside praise. The goal, to make you subconsciously seek approval. Why do people test you with small disrespect before escalating? Because boundaries are measured incrementally. A slight joke at your expense, a delayed reply, a minor interruption. If you tolerate it, they push further. If you correct it calmly, they recalibrate. Mind games are experiments. Every reaction you give teaches others how to treat you. And here's the brutal reality: most people aren't evil, they're strategic. Consciously or unconsciously, everyone protects their ego, their status, their emotional security. Mastering mind games isn't about becoming manipulative, it's about becoming aware. When you recognize power shifts, emotional triggers, and subtle tests, you stop being played. So let me ask you, are you controlling the psychological frame? Or are you reacting inside someone else's game? What if people's true intentions were never actually hidden, just ignored? Every interaction carries two layers: what is said and what is meant. Most people are trained to listen to words. Very few are trained to observe intention. And intention leaks, not loudly, not dramatically, but subtly through tone shifts, timing, energy withdrawal, forced enthusiasm. The truth is, deception requires effort. Authentic intention does not. Have you ever felt that someone's smile didn't reach their eyes? That's because real emotion activates the entire face. Fake emotion only moves the mouth. When someone congratulates you but their eyes harden for a split second, that micro-expression is envy trying to hide. When someone agrees too quickly without engagement, that's compliance, not alignment. Hidden signals live in the milliseconds people think you won't notice. Why do some people suddenly change their tone when others enter the room? Because intention adjusts based on audience. A person who respects you privately but challenges you publicly is signaling insecurity. A person who flatters you in front of others but competes behind your back is signaling status anxiety. Watch how people behave when power dynamics shift. That's where real intention surfaces. Have you noticed how jealousy disguises itself as concern? I just don't want you to get hurt. Are you sure you can handle that? Doubt framed as care is often projection. When someone consistently highlights risks around your growth, they're not protecting you, they're protecting their position in your life. True supporters encourage expansion. Threatened individuals encourage limitation. What happens when someone avoids direct answers? Deflection is a red flag of concealed motive. If a simple question receives a complicated response, something is being protected. Watch for topic shifts, humor used as distraction, or questions answered with another question. Intention hides behind redirection. Clarity feels clean. manipulation feels foggy. Have you ever noticed how quickly people expose their priorities under pressure? Stress strips performance. When urgency hits, true values appear. A loyal person defends relationships first. An opportunist protects status first. A fearful person protects image first. When stakes rise, intention rises with them. Observe people in conflict. That's where their hierarchy of loyalty becomes visible. Why do some individuals over-promise but under-deliver? Because future talk is easy. Present commitment is hard. When someone frequently paints grand visions but avoids immediate responsibility, their intention is admiration, not action. They crave the emotional high of being perceived as capable without enduring the discomfort of proving it. Watch consistency. Intention without consistency is illusion. Have you felt someone subtly competing with you even in casual conversations? That's insecurity masked as engagement. If every achievement you share is met with a bigger story, if every vulnerability you reveal is redirected to them, you're witnessing ego preservation. True connection listens. Hidden rivalry compares. And here's the uncomfortable truth. People rarely reveal their intentions through grand betrayals. They reveal them through patterns. Repeated disrespect. Repeated subtle envy. Repeated emotional inconsistency. Signals become predictable when you stop excusing them. So let me ask you something powerful. Are you still trusting words? Or are you finally watching patterns? What if human nature has never changed, only the masks have? Across centuries, power, fear, envy, desire, pride, the same emotions rule the human mind. Philosophers like Nietzsche understood something most people still ignore: morality is often a performance, but instinct is always honest. If you want to read people instantly, you must stop judging what they say and start observing what they value. Values expose hierarchy. Hierarchy exposes motive. Have you ever noticed how people justify their weaknesses as virtues? The insecure call themselves humble, the fearful call themselves careful, the envious call themselves realists. This is psychological self-preservation. Nietzsche's brutal insight was simple: people reshape truth to protect their ego. When someone constantly reframes their limitations as strengths, you're not seeing confidence, you're seeing defense. Why do people resent those who display power they secretly desire? Because comparison creates emotional friction. When someone attacks ambition, criticizes confidence, or mocks discipline, it often reflects their own suppressed desire. They don't hate the trait, they hate the reminder. And when you recognize that resentment is wounded admiration, you begin to see through hostility instantly. Have you observed how quickly loyalty disappears when status shifts? Praise is loud when you're rising. Silence grows when you're winning. Support becomes distant when you surpass expectations. This isn't coincidence, it's hierarchy anxiety. Humans subconsciously measure social rank. When your growth threatens someone's identity, their behavior recalibrates. Watch who celebrates you when you succeed beyond them. That's where real loyalty lives. What happens when someone feels powerless in one area of life? They overcompensate in another. The ignored become controlling. The underestimated become aggressive. The insecure become arrogant. Power seeks balance. If you notice extreme behavior, look for hidden deficiency. Intensity often masks internal imbalance. Have you noticed how people preach values they struggle to live by? The loudest moral voices sometimes hide the deepest contradictions. When someone aggressively condemns a behavior, question whether they are fighting it internally. Projection is one of the strongest psychological signals. People attack externally what they fear internally. Why do people crave leaders who appear unshakable? Because emotional certainty reduces anxiety. Humans follow strength, not because strength is always right, but because it feels safe. When someone speaks calmly under pressure, maintains posture under scrutiny, and refuses to react emotionally, they project psychological authority. And authority attracts obedience. Have you ever wondered why some individuals remain unpredictable? Because they refuse to reveal emotional triggers. The less reactive someone is, the harder they are to manipulate. When you can't identify fear, ego wounds, or validation needs, prediction becomes difficult. That's power. Emotional self-control is strategic invisibility. And here's the deepest psychological law of all: people act in alignment with their dominant emotion. Fear drives betrayal. Pride drives competition. Envy drives sabotage. Love drives sacrifice. Once you identify which emotion rules someone, their future actions become visible. So let me ask you one final question. Are you still believing in appearances, or are you finally studying human nature beneath the mask?